Hello, you guys. It is Stephanie from Unveiling the Spirit, and today I want to unveil the spirit about the Christianity and this recent election that just passed. Of course, I want to talk about this because this election has been said to be one of the most polarizing elections in American history, and you can see it all throughout the culture in churches and relationships and things like that. It has driven a divide between families, between friends, churches, and I've even heard about some people getting divorced over this. I really wanted to address this issue because when it comes to Christians, we have the responsibility of doing things and viewing things from a more spiritual perspective as opposed to just going along with what the world does. And I think this topic of the election is a perfect example to show that. And so that's kind of what I want to shed some light on today. But I don't want you guys to think that this video is going to be about me telling Christians how they should vote, because I don't necessarily think that's my place, my job, nor do I feel the need to. Some people do, and that's fine. I just don't. I kind of suggest to people that you be informed and then you vote according to your convictions. Those convictions are between you and God, because He knows the motivation behind those convictions more than sometimes we ourselves know those motivations. But you just be informed and vote according to your convictions, and I think the rest is kind of between you and God. And so I'm not going to get into how you should have voted, or if you're really Christian, you're not Christian, you would have voted this way or that way. I think that can be very sensitive topic, and I've heard a lot of people speak on this, and I didn't agree with what they were saying. So anyway, I don't want to get into that. But I do, what I want to point out, and like I said, I like to unveil a spiritual perspective over these issues. And what I want to touch on is which I think is a bigger problem, other than how you may or may not have voted, is the amount of Christians that I've seen that are overly invested in the outcome either way. I have this saying that I have been saying for some time, and it seems more relevant to me now than it has before, and that's that Christians should be involved in what is going on in this world, but not invested in what is going on with this world. And it reminds me, or I probably have gotten it from, the scripture that says to be in the world but not of the world. It to me is very similar to that. And so when I say that, sometimes I get mixed reactions from people because they think that I am saying Christians shouldn't care about what is going on in the world. And that's not necessarily what I mean. We should be involved because we do care, but we should not be invested that we are putting any of our hopes, our dreams, our feelings, our livelihoods, our futures. We are staking that on the outcome of what happens. And so I see a lot of Christians doing that. And I think that is a very, very fine line where you're kind of crossing from being concerned about spiritual things to getting so wrapped up in earthly things or worldly things that it begins to blur your vision of God, because you cannot be spiritual and worldly. We all know, or those who read the Bible, or Christians, if you are a Christian, that those things can't blend, and you can't make them blend. So if you're overly concerned about the world, you're automatically not being very spiritual, and God is about spiritual things and not so much invested in worldly things, because as we know, the world is perishing. And so I'll get into that a little bit more. I want to try to explain what I mean by involved and not invested. So we should be involved because for two reasons. For number one, we should care. And so the reason why we should care is that God did make this earth for us. He made this earth for us. He gave us the responsibility of taking care of the earth, and that includes ourselves, our families, and all the people on it. And so being involved is nothing more than taking on the responsibility that God has given us over this earth. And so it's no different from, somebody giving you a car and you're taking care of that car. So we have been given the earth. Is our responsibility to care after the earth and do our best on the earth. And so that is one reason why we should be involved. Another reason why we should be involved is because as Christians, we become the buffer for evil. And so if we are not involved, evil runs more rampant. So it brings to mind for me the days of Noah, when the world was so evil that God just, flooded the earth and killed everybody except for Noah and his family. He did that because the evil had gotten out of control. And so when you have people or Christians that are standing in the gap, and I'm not just talking about on a political stage either, but just helping and loving and being kind and being there and help and being there for people, praying for people, looking out for people, and anything of that nature, we become a buffer for evil. And so that allows for evil not to run rampant, because if it was up to the enemy and the fallen angels, this whole world would be so wicked that it would shock even us. And so we become the buffer, and it's important for us to remain the buffer for those reasons. But that is not the same thing as being invested. Like, you do your responsibility and you care and you're involved, but you are not staking your hopes and your dreams and your emotions and your future and your livelihood on the things that are happening on this earth to that degree that if they don't happen this way or that way, you're nervous or you're scared or you're anxious or you're crying. We should not be that wrapped up in what is going on, and understand that God is what we are investing our hopes and our fear, because no matter what happens in this world, God is still God. And we all know that God works together for the good of those who love him. So whether a tyrant is president or a pacifist is president, we still know that our true guiding light in this light is God. It has nothing to do with the political stage. And so with those things necessary can make our life a little bit more difficult or not difficult. Yes, but our hope is in God. Our hope is much bigger than the smaller difficulties that they might bring into our lives with the choices that they make. And so if we become so attached to what is going on in this world, we automatically start to drift away from God and start trusting man and looking to man to be our help or to free us or save us or make our lives easier. And that's pretty much turning them into idols. If you're looking for any government politician or any government system or any man or anything to take the place of your hope being in God, that thing becomes an idol. And so, that is much different from having our hope in God, because when our hope is in God, we understand that no matter how bad things get or who's in office, that God is in control and that he's looking out for us. We also understand that, which I just said, that he works for our good. We also understand that no matter what happens, he wins in the end, and all those who stand with him win also. And so we don't have to be concerned or panicking about what is happening now. We know when we see things from a spiritual perspective, we see eternity, and we know from eternity that in the end we win. Like, whatever we're going through now is temporary. It's a temporary suffering that God will still use to grow us and help us and guide us and teach us, but that in the end, we win. And those who stand with God. So I don't want to say we win like we win, but the people who stand with God are the ones who wins. And so even if you think, okay, that there's a government system that represents God, and you want to, pledge allegiance to them or serve them and things like that. Even if you think that's the case, especially like with Donald Trump, I've heard so many people saying he's chosen and God put him in a place for a time such as this. And, I really think you should check the Bible, what the Bible says about that, because the Bible does not tell any Christians to follow any person other than Christ. He doesn't tell us to pledge our allegiance to any government. He doesn't tell us to, serve any political agenda. He doesn't tell us to do any of those things except for love him and love our fellow man. And so I would be very leery of people who are following anybody besides God who says they're representing God, because actually most of the time the people who are saying that are not. And the reason why I say they're not, especially when it's a big organization like a government system or a political party or things like that, is because we all know that Satan runs this world. And yes, I spoke in the beginning about God giving us this world and we have authority over it, but our authority has been stolen from us because through the devil, and he does it out of our ignorance. So all these people who have authority over the world has kind of by default giving it to the enemy when they don't understand the authority that they have. And then because he uses that to manipulate us and get us to do his bidding, when a lot of times people are not fully aware that that's what is taking place. But the Bible clearly says that he runs this world. Even when Jesus was in the wilderness for 40 days, he tried to tempt Jesus and say, I will give you this kingdom, and I will give you that, and I will give you this if you just bow to me, or whatever he said. I don't remember specifics, but it is the same thing. There is no government system in this world that represents God. God represents himself. So I will be very leery of people who are getting your allegiance or getting your attention or your investment because they're saying that, because the Bible clearly tells us that that's not the case, and God says to serve him. And so but that's what happens when you get so caught up in what is going on in this world, because you look at the benefit of something, you look at those people as like what they're doing, how it's going to benefit you. And when you're looking at people to give you something, you become a slave to them. And then it makes it very easy for you to start excusing their behavior or overlooking the things that they do, because you think you're going to get something out of it in the long run that's going to benefit you. And again, that is turning that person into an idol, because the only person that we should be looking for to do things for us and give us stuff, especially the right stuff, is God. And so we just have to be very, very careful of that. And again, keep eternity in mind. Not only that, the Bible clearly tells us as Christians that this world is not our home. And so anybody trying to make this world comfortable or avoid suffering, the Bible talks about it rains on the just as well as the unjust, that we will suffer, and things of that nature. And so anybody trying to avoid those things are people who are not focused on God, because we know that God is in control and that he can direct us. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that if someone's trying to kill you, you just lay there and be killed and you trust God. We have some ability to do things on our own. He did not give us a mind not to use it. But when it comes to doing things out of his will in order to get those things, then that's when it becomes a problem. But I will do a video about that soon, which is another one I wanted to do about deception. But so I'll go into that later. And so basically, there's no government system or anything that represents God. And so we need to be careful about when people say things like that, or when we use that as a reason to do some of the things we do, or vote the way we vote and things like that. This world, again, is run by Satan, and it's not whether you vote for this person or that person. It doesn't knock Satan off of his throne. He's here to stay until God, renews the earth and Judgment Day and New Jerusalem and all that stuff. And so that's basically what I wanted to talk about. Like I said, share a spiritual perspective on this whole election and voting and things like that. Just to reemphasize, Christians should not be overly invested in what is going on here. Even when you're not, when things happen outside of what you are kind of hoping for, you don't get upset. You don't cry. You don't stress. You say, oh, well, this is what has happened. I did my best. And you move on, because you know that your help and your purpose and your direction and your lights and everything comes from God. So that's what I want to talk about. I hope you guys got something out of this. If you have any questions or comments, of course, please, I love to hear those. And other than that, you guys be blessed and have a good day. Bye.